East River Electric Power Cooperative was officially organized on October 26, 1949 at the Cataract Hotel in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A meeting had been called to bring together the leaders of electric distribution cooperatives in eastern South Dakota to develop a single wholesale cooperative generation and transmission plan for the eastern part of the state. The power supply situation had reached a critical point for the distribution cooperatives. Wholesale rates from area power companies were among the highest in the nation. The Rural Electrification Administration was threatening to cut off any future loans to distribution systems until new sources of power could be found. And the private power companies were offering power on an excess capacity basis and without any guarantees that they would be able to continue supplying the cooperatives after they had their systems built. Adding to the urgency was the fact that construction had begun on the hydroelectric dams on the Missouri River, and low-cost hydropower would be available to the cooperatives if they had a transmission system in place to deliver that power to their load centers. Disastrous floods had occurred on the Missouri River many times during the first half of the century, but it was the major flooding of the early 1940s that spurred the federal government to action. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the U.S. Congress, and the political leaders of the upper Missouri Basin states were convinced that a comprehensive Missouri River development plan was needed. As a result of the Flood Control Act of 1944, the Pick-Sloan Plan for taming the Missouri River moved forward rapidly after World War II. At first, state and national leaders believed that public power districts would be the best way to deliver the benefits of low-cost Missouri River power to the people. However, attempts to pass favorable public power district legislation failed in the 1949 South Dakota legislative session. The electric cooperative leaders decided they had no more time to waste on the power district idea, and they went home to organize their own cooperative generation and transmission system. REA officials who had assisted power supply cooperative organizations in other states took the position that only one power supply cooperative plan for eastern South Dakota would win the approval of REA in Washington. Lewis W. Ellefson of Sherman, South Dakota chaired that October 26th meeting in Sioux Falls and charged those attending to lock the door and stay here until we agree on a plan. By the end of the day, the Nisodak, Sioux Valley, and Southeastern cooperative groups representing 21 distribution cooperatives united to form East River Electric Power Cooperative. A 9-member board was organized, and Alfred Pugh of Millbank, South Dakota, was elected the first chairman. Virgil T. Hanlon, then manager of Lincoln Union Electric Company of Alcester, South Dakota, and attorney Leo P. Flynn of Millbank, South Dakota, coordinated East River's first year of operation out of a small office on South Minnesota Avenue in Sioux Falls. During that first year, a loan application of nearly $6 million was filed with the REA, and the board began the search for a permanent headquarters location and a full-time manager. In November 1950, at a board meeting in Madison, South Dakota, the board named Virgil Hanlon as manager, selected Madison as the permanent headquarters for the new cooperative, and announced that a $5.9 million loan had been approved by REA. This loan enabled East River to begin construction in 1952 on 772 miles of 69,000-volt transmission line and 45 distribution substations. Construction of this original system was completed in the spring of 1954 and provided a cooperatively owned network to deliver power from the Missouri River dams to cooperative facilities throughout eastern South Dakota. 1954 was a milestone year for East River, as the board was expanded to 21 members, one representative from each system. And the future of East River and its members took a major turn for the better on June 11, 1954, when the first federal hydropower from Fort Randall Dam flowed into the East River system and to its 21 members. The advent of federal hydropower from the Missouri River dams enabled East River to terminate its power supply arrangements with Northern States Power Company and other private power companies for wholesale power. The availability of federal power ushered in a new era of lower wholesale and retail electric rates for the cooperatives. The future of their power supply was also guaranteed. The result of these developments spurred the first major growth cycle for East River and its members, as electric use grew at the rate of about 10 to 12% annually during the mid to late 1950s. Consequently, the first 30 years of East River's history can be characterized as a period of rapid growth and expansion. By the early 1980s, East River had invested more than $52 million in utility plant, which included 2,350 miles of transmission line, 181 substations, and revenues exceeding $33 million annually. East River's wholesale rates ranked among the lowest of the power supply cooperative systems in the United States. By this time, East River had also established itself as a regional and national leader in power supply issues. East River promoted the initial concept which led to the creation of the Midwest Electric Consumers Association in 1958 and the Missouri Basin Systems Group in 1962, which developed the power pooling agreement and partnership arrangement between the federal government and the consumer-owned systems for joint use of federal power facilities in the Missouri Basin. One of East River's original directors, Kenneth Holem of Groton, South Dakota, served as the first executive director of the Midwest Electric Consumers Association and was later the Assistant Secretary of Interior for Water and Power under President John F. Kennedy. East River's leaders were also strong proponents of Leland Ohl's giant power concept in the 1950s. This ultimately led to the creation of Basin Electric Power Cooperative in 1960 and its development of large-scale coal-fired plants to serve cooperative needs throughout the Missouri Basin. Arthur Jones, East River's president, served as the first president of the Basin Electric Board of Directors. Hanlon, the East River Board and its members took another bold step in 1969 to create a new power supply organization, the Heartland Consumers Power District, with a public vote. Through Heartland, additional financing options became available to East River, and Heartland was able to use its tax-exempt financing authority to participate in new generation and transmission facilities to benefit the cooperatives and municipal electric systems. During East River's first 50 years, there were several external events that dictated its direction. Just as World War II had halted the development of rural electrification until the late 1940s, the OPEC oil embargo of 1973 significantly altered the course of history for electric cooperatives. The imposition of federal energy conservation mandates caused a major shift in rural customer energy preferences. A massive conversion took place from fuel oil and propane to electricity. The additional demand for electric power, plus the impact of higher interest rates for new generation and transmission facilities, raised havoc with electric rates. Additionally, the farm and rural economy sank into a recession due to inflation, high interest rates, and low prices for farm commodities during the late 70s and early 80s. The loss of farms and rural consumers slowed demand for electricity, and the cooperatives were forced to adjust their operations to minimize the impact of higher rates for consumers and the reduced demand for electricity. One of East River's responses to control spiraling costs included the installation of a $10 million load management system in 1984 to control system peak demand and minimize the impact of higher costs for wholesale power. Load management also offered East River and its members the opportunity to develop incentive rates and other marketing programs for off-peak use of electricity. During the 1980s and 90s, East River moved forward with major projects to improve and expand its transmission system and services, including 24-hour dispatching operations, system-wide load management, along with state-of-the-art microwave communications and voice radio systems. East River has also distinguished itself in the areas of member communications and publications, as well as sales and marketing programs. The cooperative concept is well illustrated in East River's focus on efficient operations, which has permitted the return of more than $31 million in capital credits to member systems since 1976. Over the years, 4 more electric distribution cooperatives and 1 municipal electric system joined East River to create a power supply network covering 36,000 square miles in eastern South Dakota and western Minnesota. More than 250,000 people receive reliable electric service from this network. In recent years, mergers and consolidations have reduced the number of East River member systems from 26 to 22. East River has long believed that cooperative systems must play a major role in rural economic development. As a result, it has placed its imprint on such vital programs as the Rural Electric Economic Development READ Loan Program, the Value-Added Ag Development Center, the Touchstone Energy Program, and the American Coalition for Ethanol, to name a few. No history of East River would be complete without reference to its ability and credibility in the political arena. East River's first attorney, Leo P. Flynn, may have coined the phrase, "Cooperatives were born in politics, and if they allow it, they will die in politics." East River has stood tall and provided leadership over many years to defend rural electric loan programs, preserve the federal hydropower marketing program, and preference power policies which guarantee that cooperatives and public power entities retain their rights to federal hydropower. On many occasions, East River has joined with its peers on the state, regional, and national levels to tackle critical power supply and legislative issues affecting electric cooperatives and their members. Because of its long-term involvement with the Rural Electrification Program, East River was selected to host a U.S. Postal Service commemorative stamp ceremony in Madison in 1985. U.S. Postmaster General Paul Carlin unveiled to a crowd of thousands the 22-cent first-class stamp in honor of the 50th anniversary of the Rural Electrification Administration. During 1986, East River provided national leadership to organize and carry out a national petition campaign to Congress to save the REA loan program and prevent the federal power program from being dismantled by ill-conceived proposals of the Reagan administration. Again in 1995, East River and its members spawned a national postcard write-in campaign to Congress to ward off proposals of the Clinton administration to sell the Federal Power Marketing Administrations and auction the federal dams to the highest bidders. East River's President Wayne Wright perhaps best summarizes East River's first 50 years with this observation. Many of East River's successes are not the fruits of the leaders today. In order to celebrate 50 years of success, we must remember and honor the dedication, tenacity, foresight, honesty, and singularity of purpose evident in the directors and employees who brought us this far. If we keep these qualities of leadership that shape this program in mind as we face the challenges of the future, I am confident that the next 50 years will be as kind to our memory as the last 50 years is to theirs. The celebration of East River's first 50 years is dedicated to the many fine men and women who have given of themselves as employees, board members, and supporters to ensure a bright and prosperous future for the area we fondly refer to as East River.